Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on the government setting the stage to replace Alberta's Auditor General. But first, committing to intervention.
Obviously, if we just identify students who have who require additional support with reading and math and are not able to provide them with additional support, then we're not meeting the full expectations.
The Education Minister on legislative amendments that would mandate screening tests for literacy and numeracy in kindergarten to grade 3 and further. The results be reported to parents and Alberta Education to ensure collaborative intervention plans. Joining us now to pick up the discussion, Dr. Maren Aukerman, an associate professor in the University of Calgary's Workland School of Education with specialization in curriculum and learning. Dr. Aukerman, good to see you. Welcome to Alberta Primetime.
Thank you for having me.
All right, maybe as a starting point, how necessary is it to legislate such a screening program for math and literacy? What kind of gap do you see this filling?
I'm not actually sure, to be honest. So the screeners are not new in Alberta. They've been going on for a couple of years. So the idea that we would need screeners right now is not actually, or that we would need some kind of legislation for that, is not really very clear to me.
Because as it is, there is policy around this as it stands,
yes.
Correct?
Yeah, teachers have been giving screeners for the past couple of years. There have been lots of reports on that. There was a research survey on what was going on with that. There's not actually any clear reasoning that I can think of for why we would need legislation at this particular time.
Okay, so in mandating it, where do you feel this then leaves the role of teachers and their professional judgment in assessing the needs of young students?
Well, I think it's problematic. Now, there is evidence that screeners can help if teachers find those screeners useful. What is problematic with the screeners that are currently being used and presumably will continue to be used under this legislation is that we have about 70 to 75% of teachers who say these screeners are not actually instructionally useful. They don't actually help them teach. They already know who the kids are who are struggling. A screener is not meant to be diagnostic, so it doesn't actually give you very good information to go on for actually teaching. So the information is not of great quality. Oftentimes the screeners are actually assessing things that maybe haven't been taught yet. This is particularly a problem in math, where you haven't taught addition, but now you have to assess kids who are, who haven't been introduced to addition yet, but now they're being assessed in that, which is not a good use of time, not a good use of resources, and often puts enormous stress on these kids. So we were having a lot of reports, and I've talked to teachers where kids are in tears, and the teachers know that this is not good for kids, but and they're not getting useful information out of it. But the kids, they have to do this because that's what's being required by the government.
Okay, so how do you then see this fitting into the classroom setting? How does it change the educational dynamic?
Well, I think there are a couple of pieces that I think have real consequences for kids. So one is that this is an additional load for teachers. So they have to spend time doing this. Teachers have reported 14 hours of instructional time, and not even a particularly large by Alberta standards class. So 14 instructional hours instead of actually teaching kids, some teacher is now assessing them. And that's obviously not great for kids. So you're not necessarily getting that. And there's also the possibility of kids being misassessed. So I've heard from people who've said, we've had kids, maybe they were having a bad day, maybe they just weren't focused on the assessment, maybe they were shy, maybe they were sick. They didn't assess as well as they actually could do. But now you have a score, and that score then follows that child. Now it follows them straight up to the minister. So the minister gets a report of that. But also it reduces then the flexibility because now the teacher is expected to teach this kid in a remedial way who may not need it. So that's one problem. The other problem is that the screeners are only looking at some aspects of things. So for example, in literacy, we don't have, as far as I know, a screener that really looks at comprehension, at oral language, at writing. So what ends up happening is you have all of these screeners and then all of this pressure on teachers to improve student scores on these screeners that only look at a small dimension of what literacy is. So what I'm hearing from teachers is, we're encountering kids who are getting to 3rd grade, 4th grade, and they don't have that sort of foundation of rich language, of vocabulary, of comprehension, because everything that has been emphasized in those lower grades has been really sort of focused on the phonics, the phonemic awareness, all of which is very important. But if teachers don't have the discretion, and if they're being really sort of forced into focusing only on this kind of work, that's really damaging in the long run.
Yeah, we heard the clip of the education minister off the top. What needs to come of the government commitment to intervention? What kind of pressure must lie on the shoulders now of the government to follow through? So
I think the government needs to do a couple of things. One, they need to have a real conversation with teachers about what they need. So if screeners are going to work, and again, there's a lot of evidence on this, screeners don't work if teachers don't find them useful. So, and what we've seen with this government again and again, even going back to the development of new curriculum, there's been a real reluctance to have anything more than sort of a cosmetic presence of teachers. And that's a problem because teachers actually know what they need. So if this is going to be successful, you've got to get teachers meaningfully involved, have the teachers not just, be able to report on something at the end, but actually say what they need up front. So there's that aspect of things. And then there actually has to be real commitment to supporting not just the assessment financially, which is actually important, so that teachers do have release time that they need to do this, or that they have instructional assistants. But also, what do you then do with these results? So if a lot of teachers are saying, I have some students in my class and they've been screened and they need help, but there are not the resources from the province right now to provide that. And in a classroom that can be up to 37 students, which is what we're seeing in some of our primary age classrooms, there is no way that a single teacher is going to be able to meet all those needs. So we have to really rethink everything from class size to what kind of supports teachers are getting, so that this is not just sort of weighing a pig, as they say. You can weigh the pig, but the pig isn't going to get bigger just because you weighed it.
Okay, well, and then maybe as a final quick question, class sizes and classroom complexity, obviously points of contention through the strike by teachers. To what degree do you see this legislated screening process addressing those issues?
So I don't think it really helps. I think it actually hurts because teachers now have more work that they need to do. There's greater, some of the teachers are saying it's taking 4 or 5 hours just to do the paperwork and submit that. So teachers are actually having more responsibilities put on them without actually getting any kind of promised support. Now, supposedly there is money involved. That is not in the legislation. So will that happen? Maybe. It's not in the legislation itself. So I would love to say, yes, this is going to be the starting point. But from what I've seen from the government so far, that is not the way this government has proceeded. So I actually think it's an additional, almost moral injury to teachers to put this right after having Bill 2.
Okay, all right. I'm afraid we have to leave it there for time, but appreciate your time this evening, Dr. Aukerman. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Maren Aukerman is an associate professor in the University of Calgary's Workland School of Education, specializing in curriculum and learning.